Welcome to the Interfex 2010 main stage, presented by Biopharm International and Pharmaceutical Technology. This is Chitra Sethi, the Managing Editor of Biopharm International, and I'm here today with BarakBarnoon, the Director of Process Engineering at Pfizer Global Engineering, Pfizer Inc. We have invited Barak to talk to us today about the economics of single-use technologies. Barak, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Chitra. It's great to be here.
So, Barak, the acceptance of disposables in the industry is rapidly increasing as companies gain experience with the devices. What is the state of disposables implementation at Pfizer?
We've played around with disposables for many years now. We've been, I guess, early adopters. We've tested lots of different technologies in various parts of our business, animal health, in the biotech side, vaccines. And we've even implemented some as part of our process, platform processes, so that they are a standard mode of operation for us.
In an article that you published with Biopharm International, you said that although single-use systems help reduce capital costs, in many applications, capital savings are offset by increased operating costs. In which applications do you think disposables make the most economic sense?
So let me start with a disclaimer. You really have to perform your own analysis to see where it makes sense to implement disposables in your own facility, your own process. And it does vary so much by which disposable technology you use. It's not a one-size-fits-all, as we all know. And it also depends on how you envision the operation of that facility. Scale, run rate, these all have a profound effect on the way the economics turn out. That disclaimer aside, the article that you reference looked at a particular facility that was envisioned to operate at a very high run rate. And we found that for instances where the operating costs associated with a disposable were more than the traditional stainless solution, that because of the high run rate, we were actually offsetting the cost savings associated with capital, initial implementation, pretty quickly. So where it ended up making sense was actually in areas where we were using fairly simple disposables that don't cost a lot on a per unit basis, such as standard biobags, rocker, bioreactors, that sort of technology.
So what approach can drug manufacturers follow to evaluate the life cycle costs of single-use systems?
So the approach that worked really well for us was to use a net present value, or NPV, calculation to quantify the difference between a disposable option and a baseline stainless steel option. So we sort of looked at the side-by-side and treated the disposable as though it were a new investment, comparing it to stainless steel. Now, we carved up the facility, looked at different applications such as buffer prep, media prep, upstream, so on, and evaluated what both the initial cost is for capital and then also what the operating cost would be. And basically treated those cash flows on the whole life cycle of the facility. So what that allowed us to do was get the full life cycle cost for the disposables, and we were able to evaluate different options, not only disposable compared to stainless, but also different versions of disposables, and see the full cost for the solution. Additionally, what it allows us to do is get to an answer fairly quickly with the available information at the time. You can put in as much detail as you want on the operating side based on the available information at the time and the amount that you have and want to use.
So is the industry still hesitant about using disposables in large-scale chromatography operations due to cost constraints?
Well, I think so. I think that there's a hesitancy to throw out very expensive resin after a single use when you could regenerate it and use it multiple times. I think there might be a game changer in sequential serial multi-column operation like simulated moving bed, where you design it such that you reach the full resin cycle lifetime within one batch. And that allows you to size the columns so that you basically use them once and throw them away. And that potentially could enable that and make it a no-brainer for disposables.
And to what extent is cost a factor in making decisions about whether or not to implement single-use technologies?
So cost is obviously one consideration. I think it's a very important one on the commercial manufacturing side. There are other considerations that absolutely have to be taken, such as the technical risk, such as where you're looking to implement them, the scale, the regulatory framework, and so on. So, the weighting of these considerations could be different depending on whether you're talking about a clinical facility or a commercial manufacturing facility, whether you're talking multi-product operation or largely, campaign single products. But on the commercial side, I'd have to say cost is a preeminent concern, especially when you consider that we have an obligation as manufacturers to make our products accessible and affordable to people around the world.
I have one last question, Barak. So how close do you think is the bioprocessing industry to implementing a fully disposable process stream?
So I think the time is now. I think there's no real substantial technical hurdle to implementing now. Maybe a better question is, where does it make sense to implement a fully disposable facility? As I mentioned, it makes more sense in certain applications than others. Certainly, we've heard about pandemic flu vaccine manufacturing, where this seems to be a good fit for rapid rollout. And certainly as the industry evolves, as new disposable technologies are introduced, there are new technologies popping up all the time. As cost profiles change, as the biopharmaceutical segment changes and we move to more small volume and personalized medicine, those economics change and where it makes sense to use a full disposable train will change.
Thank you very much for talking to us today, Barak.
Thank you.
We were talking to BarakBarnoon, Director of Process Engineering at Pfizer Global Engineering, Pfizer, in an interview recorded live at Interfec's main stage. For more vidcasts, visit biopharminternational.com/Interfex2010. This is Chitra Sethi, the Managing Editor of Biopharm International. Thank you for watching.